Daniel Carter adjusted his blue diplomatic uniform as he stepped off the transport ship onto Centauri Prime. The massive crystalline spires of the Galactic Council headquarters stretched into the purple sky above him, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. After 15 years as Earth's space diplomat, he thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. The alien guards at the entrance, tall, 4-armed Varuxi with their signature silver scales, seemed tenser than usual. They gripped their energy staffs tightly as Carter approached, their yellow eyes tracking his every movement. Something wasn't right. Credentials, the lead guard rumbled, extending one of his lower arms. Carter placed his diplomatic chip into the alien's palm, noting how the guard's upper arms never left his weapon. "Is everything all right?" Carter asked, keeping his voice calm and friendly. "You seem a bit on edge today." The guard said nothing, simply scanning the chip and returning it with a quick gesture toward the entrance. As Carter walked through the massive doorway, he caught fragments of whispered conversation between 2 passing Meridian delegates, their translucent bodies glowing with nervous energy. Humans again. Entire fleet. Shouldn't be possible. Carter slowed his pace, pretending to check his communicator while listening. The Meridian's bell-like voices chimed softly. Single ship destroyed. Without warning. His interest piqued. Carter made his way to the diplomatic lounge. The usually bustling space was oddly quiet, with various alien representatives huddled in small groups. In one corner, a group of Zixextheri crystalline beings vibrated in what he recognized as agitation. Near them, several green-skinned Arcturi, humanity's longtime allies, stood watching the others with obvious concern. Carter grabbed a cup of synthesized coffee from the refreshment station and chose a seat that gave him a good view of the room. He pulled out his data pad, appearing to work while actually observing the unusual behavior around him. A small hovering drone approached his table, its service lights blinking. "Diplomat Carter," it chirped, "Ambassador Lisa Wong requests your presence in Chamber 12 immediately." Carter found Lisa pacing in the small meeting room. Her usually neat black hair was slightly disheveled, and her dark eyes showed worry. "Dan, we've got a situation," she said without preamble. "The council's called an emergency session for tomorrow." "About what?" Lisa activated the room's holographic display, showing footage from what appeared to be a recent space battle. Carter watched as a single human ship, he recognized it as one of the new Defender-class vessels, engaged what looked like an entire Drachnid battle fleet. The human ship moved with impossible precision, its advanced shields absorbing hits while its weapons found weak points in the enemy ship's armor. "This is from 3 days ago," Lisa explained. "Commander Laura Miller in the HSS Valiant. She was escorting a civilian transport when the Drachnids attacked. She held them off single-handedly while the transport escaped. Destroyed 12 ships and forced the rest to retreat." Carter whistled softly. "Impressive, but why would this trigger an emergency session?" "Because it's the 3rd incident this month where a human ship has outmatched vastly superior forces. The Council's getting nervous. There's talk about humanity becoming too powerful too quickly." Lisa ran a hand through her hair. "Some of the elder races are pushing for restrictions on human military expansion." Carter frowned. "They can't do that. We're full members of the Council with equal rights. They're trying to classify us as a warrior species, subject to special containment protocols." Lisa's voice held a mix of anger and concern. "They're bringing up every human military victory from the past 5 years as evidence." "But those were all defensive actions," Carter protested. "We never started any of those conflicts." "Doesn't matter. The fear is spreading." Lisa showed him more footage. Human Marines repelling a hive mind collective invasion, Earth's defense fleet protecting an Arcturus colony from raiders, human ground forces evacuating civilians during the Meridian cluster conflict. "Our very competence is being used against us." Carter watched the images, understanding growing in his mind. Humanity had developed its military capabilities rapidly, driven by necessity after first contact led to immediate hostile actions from several aggressive species. They'd gotten very good at defending themselves and their allies, perhaps too good in the Council's eyes. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Lisa checked her communicator, and her face paled slightly. The HFY delegation just filed a formal motion for tomorrow's session. They want to create a special committee to study and contain the human military threat. Carter stood up, straightening his uniform. Where's the intelligence center? We need to know who's behind this and who we can count as allies. Sub-level 3. But it's restricted to. I still have clearance from the Meridian Crisis, Carter interrupted, and we need information before tomorrow's session. They made their way to the intelligence center, using Carter's old security codes to access the databases. For the next several hours, they dug through diplomatic communications, trade records, and security footage. A pattern emerged. The elder races, particularly the HFY and the Vulturi, had been quietly gathering evidence of human military capabilities for months. They'd been sharing this information with other species, carefully crafting a narrative of humanity as an emerging threat to galactic stability. Look at this, Lisa pointed to an encrypted communication thread. They're not just worried about our ships and weapons. They're concerned about how quickly we adapt and improve. The HFY ambassador called it evolutionary military dynamics unprecedented in galactic history. Carter leaned back in his chair thinking, we need to change the narrative. Instead of letting them paint us as a threat, we need to show them why our capabilities are necessary and beneficial to the Council as a whole. How? I have an idea, but we'll need help. Carter activated his communicator. Get me Captain Mary Cooper on a secure line. Tell her to bring everything she has on the Hive Mind collective attacks. I think there's more to those incidents than we initially thought. Lisa looked at him questioningly. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if certain council members want to talk about human military actions, we should examine all the circumstances surrounding those actions. Carter's eyes held a determined glint. Tomorrow's session won't go the way they expect. As they left the intelligence center, Carter noticed more diplomatic staff arriving, representatives from dozens of species preparing for tomorrow's crucial meeting. The Varuxi guards still watched him closely, but now he understood their unease. Humanity had become what the galaxy needed, protectors strong enough to stand against any threat. Tomorrow, he would make the Council understand that human strength wasn't a danger to be contained, but a shield to be welcomed. As the three suns of Centauri Prime finally set, casting the Council headquarters in shadows broken only by the soft glow of its crystal towers, Carter made his way to his quarters. He had a long night ahead, preparing to defend not just humanity's actions, but its very nature as a species that had learned to fight not for conquest, but for peace. The fate of human galactic relations would be decided tomorrow, and Daniel Carter intended to be ready. The main council chamber was packed. Representatives from 47 spacefaring civilizations filled the tiered seats, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Catherine Walsh stood at the central podium, her gray diplomatic uniform crisp and neat, her posture straight and confident despite the tension in the room. The chamber's design reflected the ancient nature of the Galactic Council, curved walls of living crystal that changed color with the emotional atmosphere of the gathering. Right now, they pulsed with deep purple hues of anxiety and concern. High Counselor Izixtal, a crystalline being who towered 3 meters tall, raised his glowing appendages for silence. This emergency session will now begin. His translated voice resonated through the chamber. We are here to address concerns regarding the military capabilities of the human species. Catherine noticed Daniel Carter sitting with the Earth delegation, his face carefully neutral. They had spent the entire night preparing for this moment. We present evidence for the Council's consideration. Izixtal continued. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. The footage showed Commander Laura Miller's recent battle against the Drachnid fleet. The Council members watched in silence as the human ship danced through space, its movements precise and deadly. Energy beams sliced through Drachnid shields. Torpedoes found weak points in enemy armor, and defensive maneuvers seemed to anticipate every attack. This is but one example. Textel's voice held a tremor of what might have been fear. In the past year alone, human military forces have demonstrated capabilities that surpass those of species who have been spacefaring for millennia. More footage appeared. Human marines repelling borders with impossible efficiency, ground forces adapting tactics mid-battle, ships performing maneuvers that pushed the limits of known physics. The human learning curve in combat situations exceeds all known parameters, a Volturi representative added, his tentacles writhing with agitation. They adapt and improve at rates that defy standard evolutionary models. Catherine stepped forward. If I may address the council. At Textel's nod, she continued. Everything you've shown here represents defensive actions. In each case, human forces were responding to unprovoked aggression. The issue is not the nature of these engagements. A Meridian delegate chimed in, her translucent form flickering with nervous energy. It is the level of combat proficiency displayed. No species should be able to advance this quickly in military capabilities. The chamber's crystals shifted to a deep red as tensions rose. Catherine kept her voice calm and clear. Perhaps the council would be interested in understanding why we've had to develop these capabilities. She nodded to Carter, who transmitted new data to the central display. A timeline appeared, showing every attack on human colonies and ships since first contact. 17 unprovoked attacks in our first year of joining the galactic community, Catherine stated. 32 in the second year. We learned because we had to. We adapted because the alternative was extinction. This does not explain the speed of your advancement. Zextel countered. Your species moves from defeat to victory with impossible speed. The Drachnid incident is proof. No one has ever survived an encounter with a full Drachnid battle fleet, let alone triumphed against one. A new voice spoke up. The Arcturi ambassador, Krell. Perhaps that is because no one else tried to understand the Drachnid's tactical patterns. Humans study their opponents. They learn, they adapt, they overcome. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices and translations. Catherine waited for the noise to subside before speaking again. We came to the stars hoping for peace, she said quietly, but her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. What we found was a galaxy where the strong prey on the weak, where ancient races watch from their secure worlds while younger species struggle to survive. We chose to be different. She gestured to the display, which now showed human ships protecting alien civilian vessels, human marines evacuating non-human civilians from war zones, human medical teams treating wounded from a dozen different species. Yes, we learned to fight, Catherine continued. We learned to fight well. But look at how we use those skills. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand against bullies and raiders. We enforce the very peace that this council claims to desire. AZX-30 Elder floated forward, their crystalline form casting rainbow patterns on the walls. Pretty words, Ambassador Walsh, but they do not change the fact that your species has become too dangerous too quickly. The natural order of galactic development must be preserved. Catherine smiled, but there was steel in her expression. Ah yes, the natural order. Let's discuss that. She nodded to Carter again, and new information appeared in the display. These are records of trade agreements and military contracts from the past 5 years, she explained. They show interesting patterns of technology transfer between certain elder races and various aggressive species, including the Drachnids. The chamber's crystals flashed bright yellow, surprise and alarm rippling through the gathering. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. It seems some races have been quite busy, Catherine continued, her voice hardening, providing advanced weapons to species known for raiding and conquest, almost as if they were creating threats to test humanity's responses. Textel's crystalline form vibrated with agitation. These allegations are fully documented, Catherine interrupted. And we haven't even gotten to the interesting part yet. She looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes, and sensory organs. Would the Council like to hear about the hive mind collective attacks? About who really orchestrated them? The chamber erupted again, but this time the noise had a different quality: shock, fear, and growing anger. The wall crystals pulsed with rapid color changes, reflecting the turmoil. "Perhaps," Catherine said into the chaos, "instead of discussing how to contain humanity, we should discuss why certain council members felt the need to engineer conflicts to test us." As the uproar continued, Carter watched from his seat, hiding a small smile. The plan was working. The attempt to paint humanity as a threat was backfiring spectacularly. Instead, questions were being raised about the actions of the elder races. A chime sounded through the chamber, the signal that another delegation was requesting emergency admission to the session. The doors opened to admit Captain Mary Cooper, her presence causing another wave of murmurs through the assembly. Catherine nodded to her. "Captain Cooper has just returned from investigating the Hive Mind Collective's base of operations. I believe the Council will find her evidence very interesting." The chamber's crystals settled into a deep blue of anticipation as Captain Cooper made her way to the podium. The assembly that had gathered to contain humanity was about to learn some uncomfortable truths about their own leaders. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would be at the center of that change, not as a threat to be feared, but as a force for justice that could no longer be ignored. John Peterson walked to the center of the council chamber, his military attaché uniform drawing all eyes. Next to him, Captain Mary Cooper stood ready with her evidence. The chamber's crystalline walls now pulsed with deep shades of anticipation. "Honored council members," John began, his voice clear and steady, "I'm here to share something important about humans. We aren't naturally warlike. In fact, most of us would prefer peace." He activated a holographic display showing Earth. Peaceful cities, farms, families, and parks. This is what we value. But since we joined the galactic community, we've had to change. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to survive. The display shifted to show the first alien attack on a human colony. The settlement on New Eden burned as raiders struck without warning. This was our introduction to galactic society. No diplomacy, no warnings, just death. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Captain Cooper stepped forward, adding her own data to the display. "During our investigation of the Hive Mind Collective's base, we found something interesting." She showed scanning data of alien technology. Their weapons weren't their own. They were using modified Zix-Theri designs. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. High Counselor, the Zixel's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been anger or fear. "We tracked the weapons' signatures," Cooper continued. "The same modified technology appeared in 17 different attacks on human colonies, all supposedly from different species." She looked directly at the elder race representatives, but all coming from the same source. John brought up more images, technical diagrams, trade records, secret communications. Some council members wanted to test humanity. They armed our enemies, watched how we fought back, studied our responses. They treated human lives like specimens in an experiment. Catherine Walsh stepped forward to join them. But something unexpected happened. We didn't just survive. We learned. Every attack made us stronger. Every battle taught us something new. We became what you see today not because we wanted power, but because we refused to be victims. The chamber's walls shifted to deep red as tensions rose. An Arcturi delegate raised his hand. "This explains much. We always wondered why humans advanced so quickly in combat. You were forced to adapt or die." "Exactly," John nodded. "But look how we used that strength." He showed new footage. Human ships defending alien merchant vessels, human Marines evacuating civilian populations of all species, human medical teams treating wounded enemies. "We could have become conquerors," he continued. "Instead, we chose to be protectors. When we see others in danger, we help, regardless of species. When we find those who can't defend themselves, we stand with them." Captain Cooper brought up her final piece of evidence, detailed scans of the Hive Mind Collective's command center. These showed direct communications between collective leaders and certain council members. They were given exact coordinates of human settlements, told when our defenses would be weakest. The chamber erupted in chaos. Several younger species representatives stood up, shouting questions at the elder races. The wall crystals flashed with patterns of anger and betrayal. Catherine raised her hands for silence. We're not here for revenge. We're here for truth. Humanity didn't choose to become warriors. We were forced into it by those who wanted to test our limits, to see how we would react under pressure. John stepped forward again. But now that we have this strength, we choose how to use it. We choose to protect. We choose to defend. We choose to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. The Arcturi ambassador moved to stand with them. My people can confirm this. When raiders attacked our outer colonies, humanity's ships came to help. They asked nothing in return. They simply said that defending others was the right thing to do. More representatives began to speak up. Species who had been helped by human forces, who had seen firsthand how humanity used its military power to protect rather than conquer. The question isn't whether humans are too dangerous, John concluded. The question is why certain council members felt the need to create dangers to test us, and more importantly, what we do now that the truth is known. Captain Cooper activated one final display, a map showing every instance where human forces had defended other species. The number was staggering. We've become what the galaxy needed, she said quietly. Not conquest-hungry warriors, but defenders willing to stand up against any threat. We're not the danger you need to fear. We're the shield you didn't know you needed. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. The wall crystals settled into a deep blue of contemplation. The revelation was complete. Humanity's rapid military advancement wasn't a natural evolution or a sign of aggressive intentions. It was the result of carefully orchestrated tests by elder races who had underestimated humanity's capacity for both learning and compassion. John looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes and sensory organs. We're not asking for praise or thanks. We're not even asking for apologies from those who tested us. We're simply asking for understanding. This is who we are now, not because we wanted it, but because the galaxy made us this way. The chamber's mood had shifted. The fear and suspicion that had filled it at the start of the session were replaced by something new, a growing recognition that humanity's strength might be exactly what the galactic community needed. As the session moved toward its conclusion, John caught Daniel Carter's eye across the chamber. The diplomat gave a slight nod. Their plan had worked. The truth was out, and with it, the possibility of a new understanding between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. The revelation was complete. What would come next would depend on how the Council chose to react to these uncomfortable truths about their own leaders. Mary Cooper stood firm as chaos erupted in the Council chamber. Her fleet captain's uniform, bearing the scars of recent battles, drew sharp contrast to the ornate robes of the Council members. The evidence she had just presented about the hive mind collective attacks had thrown the assembly into turmoil. "These records are clear," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The collective's attacks were coordinated by members of this very council. They provided advanced targeting data, ship movements, and colony locations. The chamber's crystalline walls pulsed angry red as accusations flew between species. The younger races turned on the elder ones, demanding explanations. High Counselor Dixel's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained rage. "You dare accuse ancient races of such behavior?" The counselor's translated voice boomed through the chamber. "Where is your proof?" Mary smiled grimly and nodded to her technical officer. New holograms filled the air, encrypted communications, weapons signatures, flight patterns. "We found these in the collective's command center. Your encryption was good, but humans are very good at breaking codes." Catherine Walsh stepped forward to join her. "The question isn't whether this happened. The question is why. Why did council members feel the need to test humanity this way?" An Arcturi delegate rose, his scaled skin reflecting the chamber's red light. "Perhaps they feared what humans might become." But in trying to contain that potential, they created exactly what they feared. Not exactly, Mary corrected. She brought up new footage. Human ships forming defensive lines around civilian convoys, Marine units evacuating alien children from combat zones, medical teams treating wounded enemies. They created something they didn't expect. We became protectors, not conquerors. The chamber's mood shifted as the images played. The crystal walls slowly changed from angry red to thoughtful blue. Several younger species representatives nodded in understanding. But the testing didn't stop, Mary continued. She revealed more data. Recent communications showing planned attacks on human settlements. Some council members are still trying to probe our limits, still treating human lives as test subjects. The Arcturi ambassador slammed a clawed hand on his podium. This must end. The council exists to promote peace, not engineer conflicts. High Counselor Sextel's crystalline form pulsed with energy. You don't understand. Humanity's rate of military advancement is unprecedented. We had to know. Had to know what? Mary interrupted. How many of us you could kill. How much it would take to break us. Her voice carried years of combat experience, of watching friends and colleagues die in engineered conflicts. Well, now you know. We don't break. We adapt. We learn. We protect. Catherine Walsh raised a hand, drawing attention. Let's be clear about what happened here. Certain council members, fearing humanity's potential, created threats to test us. But instead of becoming the warriors they feared, we became the defenders the galaxy needed. The chamber fell silent as she continued. Every time you tested us, we didn't just survive. We used what we learned to protect others. When the Meridian colonies were attacked, who stood with them? When the Arcturi needed help, who came? When the collective threatened neutral worlds, who defended them? Mary brought up a final set of images, the aftermath of the recent conflicts. Human ships standing guard over rebuilt colonies. Human aid workers helping displaced aliens. Human diplomats working to forge peace treaties. You wanted to see what we would become, Mary said quietly. Well, look carefully. We became exactly what the galaxy needed. A shield for those who can't defend themselves. A force that stands against bullies and raiders. Protectors who don't ask for anything in return. The chamber's crystals shifted to deep purple as the council members absorbed this truth. The younger species representatives began talking among themselves, casting meaningful looks at the elder races. A Meridian delegate floated forward, her translucent form glowing bright. If what you say is true, then the council itself has violated its most sacred principles. We cannot allow this to continue. The Arcturi ambassador nodded. Perhaps it is time for change. The old order has shown it cannot be trusted. We need new guardians, ones who have proven they will stand for all species, not just their own interests. High Counselor de Sextel's form pulsed with alarm. You cannot seriously suggest. We can, and we do. The Meridian cut him off. We call for an immediate vote of no confidence in the current council leadership. Let those who engineered conflicts face judgment for their actions. The chamber erupted again, but this time the chaos had purpose. Species aligned themselves, younger races standing with humanity while the elder races found themselves increasingly isolated. Mary watched it all, remembering the battles she'd fought, the lives lost in these tests. But she also remembered every civilian saved, every colony protected, every peace treaty signed. They had become something unique in the galaxy, warriors who fought for peace, protectors who stood for all. As the council began formal procedures to restructure its leadership, Mary caught Catherine's eye. The diplomat nodded slightly. This was more than they'd hoped for, not just clearing humanity's name, but bringing about real change in the galactic power structure. The challenge had been met. The truth was known. Now came the hard part. Helping to build a new order that would truly serve all species, not just the powerful few. The crystal walls of the chamber settled into a steady gold, the color of change, of new beginnings. Humanity had been tested, and in passing those tests, had shown the galaxy a better way forward. William Hayes, Earth's defense chief, walked into the council chamber with purpose. The room looked different now. The crystalline walls glowed with a mix of colors, reflecting the complex emotions of the assembled species. 3 days of heated debates had led to this moment. Honored representatives, he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. I stand before you with a proposal. Instead of fearing humanity's strength, why not use it for the good of all? He activated the chamber's holographic system, showing scenes from recent conflicts. But these weren't the usual battle footage. These showed human forces working alongside other species, protecting civilian ships, evacuating endangered colonies. In the past year alone, human ships have responded to 342 distress calls from non-human vessels. Our Marines have helped evacuate 16 colonies under attack. Our medical teams have treated wounded from 23 different species. The display shifted to show the Meridian Cluster conflict. Human ships formed defensive lines around civilian transport ships, while ground forces helped evacuate cities under attack. This is who we are, William continued. Not conquerors, not threats, but protectors. We've learned to fight because we had to. Now we choose to fight for those who can't defend themselves. Catherine Walsh stepped forward to join him. The old council leadership has been removed due to their actions in engineering conflicts. Now we need to build something new, something better. The Arcturian ambassador raised his scaled hand. What exactly are you proposing? William smiled. Instead of trying to contain humanity's military capabilities, make use of them. Appoint humans as official peacekeepers of the galaxy. Let us do openly what we've been doing already. Protecting the innocent, defending the weak, standing against those who would prey on others. The chamber buzzed with conversation. The crystal walls shifted through shades of blue and green as species considered the idea. But who would control these peacekeeping forces? A Meridian delegate asked. How can we be sure they won't be misused? A joint command structure, William replied. He brought up a detailed organizational chart. Representatives from all council species would oversee operations. Deployment would require agreement from multiple races, complete transparency in all actions. Mary Cooper stepped forward, still in her battle-worn captain's uniform. We've already proven ourselves. When the Drachnids attacked the Arcturian colonies, we didn't wait for permission. We helped. When the collective threatened neutral worlds, we defended them. We've shown what we stand for. The display showed more images. Human ships escorting merchant vessels through dangerous sectors, Marine units training alongside alien forces, medical teams working in disaster zones. The galaxy needs protectors, William continued. Not conquerors, not warriors, but defenders who will stand up to bullies and raiders. That's what humanity has become, not because we wanted to, but because it was necessary. The Arcturian ambassador nodded slowly. I support this proposal. My people have seen firsthand how humans use their strength to protect others. One by one, other species began to voice their support. The younger races especially, who had often been victims of raiders and aggressive powers, saw the value in having humanity as their defenders. But what about the costs? A Zetex Theory representative asked. Maintaining such forces requires significant resources. William brought up new data. Earth is willing to commit 30% of our fleet to peacekeeping duties. We'll train joint forces, share defensive technologies, help establish rapid response teams. All we ask is cooperation and support from Council worlds. Catherine stepped forward again. Think about what this means. No more waiting helplessly while colonies are raided. No more watching civilian ships disappear in dangerous sectors. A force dedicated to protecting all species, regardless of their military strength. The chamber's crystals shifted to golden hues as understanding and hope spread through the assembly. This wasn't just about humanity anymore. It was about creating a better, safer galaxy for all species. I call for a vote, the Arcturian ambassador declared, not just on accepting humans as peacekeepers, but on establishing a new council charter, one that emphasizes protection of all species, not just the powerful few. The voting process took several hours. Species consulted with their governments, debates continued, details were refined. But in the end, the result was clear. The proposal passed with an overwhelming majority. William Hayes looked out over the chamber as the final votes were tallied. The crystal walls glowed with bright gold, the color of new beginnings. Humanity had been tested, feared, and finally understood. They had become the galaxy's protectors not through conquest or aggression, but through a simple willingness to stand up for what was right. The resolution passes, the interim council leader announced. From this day forward, human forces will serve as official peacekeepers of the Galactic Council. May this mark the beginning of a new era of safety and cooperation for all species. As the chamber erupted in cheers and congratulations, William caught Mary Cooper's eye. She smiled slightly. They both knew the real work was just beginning. Being the galaxy's protectors would not be easy, but humans had never shied away from a challenge. The crystal walls of the chamber settled into a steady, peaceful blue. Fear had been transformed into hope, suspicion into trust. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or threats, but as guardians of peace and protectors of the innocent. The resolution was complete. The real challenge, living up to this new role, was just beginning.